Good day. Hello, and welcome to the Age Differently podcast. My name is Peter Callan, and I'm here with my co-host, Darius Naigamwala. Darius, say hello to our audience, and if you would, please share. What are we talking about today?
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Hello, everyone. Delighted to have you listening again. Today's topic is going to be something that is really pivotal to living a fulfilling, optimized life, and that is how to lean into challenges. So when you see an obstacle, when you see a roadblock, rather than running from it, rather than shirking from it, how to use those as opportunities potentially for transformational growth.
That's the question today. And what has been your own experience with challenges?
Yeah, so I'm not going to get into my own experience with challenges right yet because we're going to talk about that through it. But like any human being, your life is full of challenges. You have challenges from the first day you go to the playground to probably the last breath that you take. And so challenges are abundant in life. And I think what comes down to it is let's talk through how challenges are opportunities and how you approach it really dictates what you get out of it. Talk about the importance of your mindset. We've done a podcast on a resilient, healthy mindset. Let's talk about the importance of mindset when you're approaching challenges and how you're seeing it and the lenses that you bring to those challenges. When you talk about failure, quote unquote, what failure is and how to learn and grow from failure. And then finally, we're going to have some tangible steps for how to move forward with these challenges and embrace it and grow. So I guess I'd love to start off, Peter, talking about how a lot of individuals, and I'm sure you've seen this in your coaching practice, see challenges as things to be avoided, see challenges as things to be run from. What have you seen in your coaching practice with how people approach challenges, the different ways they approach challenges, and what tends to work and what may not be doing people justice that they deserve?
I think the biggest challenge with personal growth and facing challenges is belief in self. It seems to me that people create a perception that they can't overcome the obstacles. Maybe they have a fear of them. In my coaching, that's what I see, that the fear of failure can sometimes be impetus and sometimes be recognized as an opportunity to learn and to grow from it. But what I see as a commonality is that the self-perception can really affect how you engage with challenges, and if you have confidence, it's a little easier than if you lack the confidence or you've been conditioned to not value your worth.
But you raised an interesting word there, confidence. And I think if you face a challenge, you face that obstacle, and you are able to, quote unquote, overcome or thrive or grow, your confidence grows as a result of that, which is why I think challenges are so important because they're an opportunity for self-discovery. They're an opportunity to look inside as well as outside as to what's going on. They're an opportunity to grow new skills, new capabilities, and they could be something very tangible. It could also be something more intuitive. And it's an opportunity for you to develop confidence by realizing that, I can put myself in an ice bath for 3 minutes. I can do that. I can do 4 minutes the next time. So it builds, it snowballs, it spirals.
I agree. But as I'm trying to point out, there are just sometimes maybe traumatic experiences that ripple out and they affect self-confidence, self-esteem. And I guess I'm highlighting them now because they get in the way of being able to apply abilities and capabilities that, like you said, have been developed over time, have shown a pattern of success or a pattern of achievement, a pattern of overcoming challenges, and yet they doubt.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at, Peter, is the next section where you get into more detail, which is the importance of mindset. And the mindset incorporates the beliefs you have. It incorporates the trauma from your past. It incorporates your current biases and perspectives. So yeah, let's definitely get into that in a lot more detail. Let's talk about failure a little bit just to kind of set up, because anytime you're faced with an obstacle, you are going to fail. And I'd love your thoughts on failure and what failure, and I keep using that word over and over again for a reason, what that means to you and how we take that and learn from it.
Both you and I have talked about this quite a bit. There really isn't such a thing as failure. Failure is a mindset that's been maybe imprinted in us with regard to a concept of when you don't necessarily succeed or overcome a challenge. But there's no such thing as failure.
Yeah, Sorry, go ahead.
Where you don't succeed in overcoming the challenge, you have an opportunity. There are possibilities of learning. And so that would be a different mindset to have instead of looking at failure as a negative.
Yeah, I love Edison's quote. I've not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. So every time you do something, even if you don't get the outcome that you were hoping for, you are learning. You are learning what works and what does not work. And I think it's important to note that when we are talking about opportunities, because they're not challenges, they're opportunities, we need to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Doing the same over and over again results in stagnation, and eventually you're going to slowly decline. Whereas if you are open to the experience of trying new things, growing, creative solutions to capitalize on that opportunity that's being presented to you, that's the path to personal growth. That's the path to professional growth. That's the path to transformational change.
Understood.
So give me an example, if you wouldn't mind, of a setback that you encountered somewhere along the way and how you found a meaningful path coming out of it. It could be something professional that happened to you. It could be something personal. I'd love a story before we transition to the importance of mindset next.
Well, I've got 3.
3.
You cut me off whenever.
You got 1. I'm going to cut you off after 1, so pick a good one.
Learning to walk.
You remember learning to walk?
Kind of.
That's a different conversation in and of itself. The fact that you could remember learning to walk, I think you truly are an anomaly.
And falling and getting back up. And the reason I refer to it is because throughout the rest of my life, when I fell, for some reason, intuitively, instinctively, I just got the hell back up. And it didn't matter how many times I fell. And there was some correlation to, and that's why I brought it up, there was some correlation to learning to walk from when I was young. And again, some of these things happened for me intuitively, instinctively, and that was one of them. And then in adult life, between not having the success professionally with sports that I had expected and hoped for, leaving American Express to pursue an entrepreneurial venture that obviously I expected to be successful with, and it didn't exactly manifest the way I had intended. The objective was achieved, but my personal success felt like a failure at the time. It put jeopardy in the path of my responsibilities to my family. It proved a risk that would create its own challenges. But from that, I've been on a path over the years that puts me here now.
You've been where you need to be. So let's talk about the next section, which is the importance of mindset. And I know you wanted to get into that a couple of minutes ago, and I kind of pulled you out.
Yeah, you do that sometimes.
Not yet. We got a structure. We're going to stick to the structure so that people who want to listen to only a certain piece can. But I think about the importance of mindset when we approach these challenges, opportunities, barriers. And I think about the concept of lenses. Right? Somebody once told me, if you have 5 different people feel an elephant, one person's going to feel the trunk. It's going to say it's rough and leathery and moving. Another person's going to feel the tusks. Oh, it's smooth and cool. Another person is going to feel defeat, and you're going to get very different opinions of what the person is if they were blindfolded as they were feeling it. I think about the concept of lenses as we approach our problems, and that's what you were trying to get to earlier, which is people come with all sorts of preconditioned beliefs, biases. I can't do this. I am going to fail. Oh, this is going to happen again. And those lenses filter and impact how we address or how we go forward and engage with these challenges. So I guess what I'd love to hear your thoughts on is the antithesis of that mindset, more of the growth mindset, the importance of continuous learning as it relates to the resilience that you need to show when approaching adversity.
Well, first of all, I think it's wonderful, the terminology that you've adapted to how to have a view of mindset of the situation or the challenges, the lenses. I love it. I would say that a takeaway, I've been reading, and I know he's not like the most admired person, but Elon Musk's autobiography. And one of the things that struck me was his willingness to take risk and adapt and adjust regardless of the outcome. And I think with the lenses, you have a mindset, you could have a mindset that could be willing to take a risk, positive about the outcome, prepared to adjust as things shift, as things don't come out as you expect. I think that mindset, the one that is positive, the one that is not risk adverse, and the one that is prepared for adjustments and aware of the need for adjustments, I think that's the mindset that serves best in facing challenges.
Yeah, I call that an engaged mindset. And what I mean by that is when the challenge appears, because you're in a human body, you're going to have challenges. That's
No question.
part of the construct, part of the deal. You're going to have them. Rather than asking, why me? We all ask that question at some point in our time. Why did this happen to me? All right, well, that leads to a state of self-pity. That leads to a contraction and a really interesting lens that you're putting on that situation versus a lens of, what can I learn from this? I was coaching an individual, and we were talking about negative self-limiting beliefs as it gets to the mindset, that the chatter that you hear in your head that may or may not, probably not, be grounded in fact, that becomes this narrative. And really insightful guy I was working with, and we talked about that. And I pointed out something that I thought was probably going on in his head. And he said, you know what I'm going to do? I got a Sharpie in my pocket. Every time I have one of those things for the rest of the day, I'm just going to put a little mark on my arm. That's a brilliant idea. What a great way to become aware of what's going on and have a reminder of it so that you can start to address it. I talked to him the next day and I asked him, between 1 o'clock and 9 o'clock, how many times did you notice negative self-limiting comments? 27. So when you think about that played out over a course of a day, it's probably 50. Over a course of a year, that's what, 15, 20,000 negative self-limiting things that you're saying about yourself. It's not helpful. It's not based in fact. So just become aware of it, notice it, and let it go. Because one of the critical things when you're approaching these challenges, getting into the next subject, is resilience.
Yes. Pushing back a bit. What about the people who aren't able to just ignore that feeling of negativity? What if they, how, I think the better question is, how do you overcome these negative limiting beliefs?
I think it's highly variable for everybody. I think the first thing to do is to become aware that they exist. Because if you're not aware of them, they're going to continue to run on autopilot in your subconscious. The second thing is to take a look at each of those self-limiting beliefs, figure out where you learned that, right? What you were told or what you experienced that got you there. The third thing is to then take the conscious into the subconscious and ask if it's valid, if it's legitimate, if it is in fact true. Then there is a period of accepting that, okay, I've had this belief. It no longer serves me. I understand why I got it. I need to make a conscious effort to reprogram what I think. And there's different ways you can do that. People believe in affirmations. People believe in, I read a book on afformations, which is asking the question and then letting the subconscious do the work. So I think there's a lot of different ways, but the first thing is become aware of it.
Yes.
Figure out where it came from, and then ask yourself if it's serving you and if it's true. And if not, knock it off.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Now, back to resilience. I love your thoughts on resilience, because what we're encouraging people to do is to lean into challenges. That is going to make them uncomfortable. We've explained you need to get comfortable being uncomfortable in this situation. We've also explained that you're not going to get the outcome that you think you want all the time. And hence, resilience is required. So I'd love your thoughts on resilience.
Resilience is a recognition that things aren't going to go your way all the time. And as a result, just continuing to be positive, to be learning how to adjust so that the outcome favors you more, but not get stuck with the experience that that manifested when a challenge kind of maybe knocked you down and you didn't achieve, or you didn't get to some outcome that you were looking for. Resilience is just accepting that that's your reality, that was your situation, but not being stuck. I like to look at non-resilience as arrested development. If you get stuck because you don't have resilience, then you don't really grow, and your development kind of slows down or stops. It is a given that we live in a world where change is a constant. So change in and of itself is a challenge. Even the outcome that you've achieved is going to change. And so will you be ready for that?
Absolutely. So what are some practical steps for people that, I call it grit, right? You get knocked back down, you talked about getting back up. What are some practical steps that our listeners, if they choose, can employ to kind of build that resiliency within them?
One of the things that I've come across in coaching is that, you mentioned awareness, and I'll mention it here again, and I'll use the term discernment too. The capacity to recognize when you're stuck is evidence that you're not being resilient. So being aware that, you're not growing, you're not developing, that you're playing it safe, that you're not risking, is a way to kind of motivate you to activate the resilience. So being aware, and then taking actions based on the present moment, making the adjustments, acknowledging how things have changed and what needs to be different in terms of your actions. Noticing if you're limiting yourself with imprints, conditioning, habits that get in the way of moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I would also add reaching out for help, leveraging your support network. I've had an unexpected event happen, wasn't ready for this. Getting counsel from people. Oh, I've seen something like this before. Here are 2 or 3 things you can consider. Or even just having that sounding board, I think is so excited, so important. I remember when I moved to the Northeast, I was doing a corporate job, and my win rate was somewhere between 45 and 50%. I went on a streak where I went 0 for 11. Everything I was getting opportunities, they just weren't closing, and confidence got questioned at that point in time. I had to have people looking at the work that I was doing to see if I was missing anything. And in hindsight, it all makes sense why it went that way. But it was, okay, there's nothing systemic that has changed from the formula that I have gotten here. I am new to a market. They don't know my organization. They don't know me. So I'm going to have to keep putting shots on goal at an even higher level of quality until I can start to break in. And that was resilience, because after going 0 for 11 over a period of 3 or 4 months, it would have been easy to say there's no market here, it's embedded, it's taken. But I took the exact opposite approach. I dug deeper, I elevated my game, and I made things happen.
Yeah. You remind me that sometimes it's a matter of recognizing that you're not in the flow. You're not, and the lack of success has nothing to do necessarily with just you and whatever absence of growth
right.
and skills you have. And I think that recognition can help with resilience. It's a recognition that, it's not just about me. There are many other factors in play.
Yeah.
I just need to align myself to what will gain me what my objective is. And that may not be today. It may not be immediate.
Yeah, and I think we also have to remember you have a choice. Right? Do I choose to get back up and try again, recognizing that if I do the same thing and I don't change, well, my probability of success or the outcome I want may not be high. Do I make some adaptations to get where I need to get to? Or do I just choose to lie down and say, that's it, I'm taking my ball and going home? And you know what? In some situations, that is the right answer. When you have exhausted everything you possibly can think of, when you have sought counsel, when you have made all the little adjustments and wholesale efforts, sometimes you just got to say, I'm not in the flow. I have tried. I can put my head on my pillow at night knowing that I've tried everything here. I've grown in ways that I didn't expect to grow, but I need to move on.
Yeah. Yes.
So let's talk about practical steps for embracing challenges and growing. And Peter, the first one, we got 3 or 4 here that I have that I'm going to talk about, or I'm going to ask you to talk about, because it is far, far more up your alley than it is mine. It's very much a work in progress for me. Cultivating patience.
As you were leading into this, patience was a factor that I realized we hadn't really mentioned yet. And in terms of resilience, in terms of personal growth, it's our impatience that gets in the way of success. Things don't happen on our time frame. We would like to believe they should or must, but we can't control all the factors. There's just no way. But we can timely respond. And so sometimes being patient, as opposed to looking somewhere else when you were looking in the right direction, requires that ability to just be present for a bit more. That's accepting things as they are for the moment, but prepared for when the shift occurs and the flow. It's a concept that's difficult to kind of interpret and adapt, but just being aware and being present are good starts.
I'm reminded of the old Bruce Lee quote, be like water, flow, and then crash. Right. So be aware, be present. And those of you that know me, patience is not my forte. The number of times I've been told to be patient in my life, if I had a nickel for every time, this whole room would be filled with nickels and spilling out to the door. But Peter's advice is wise, which is be patient with yourself. Allow that growth to develop. A second factor that I think is really, really important is taking small, consistent actions. So there's this wonderful book called Atomic Habits that I read last year, and a lot of really good insights in there. But one of the founding principles is if you make a series of 1% changes, they're not big at the time, but you do those small changes consistently over a long period of time, it compounds and adds up to something absolutely magnificent. So when we're talking about leaning into challenges, we're not saying, all right, I've tried X, Y, and Z. I'm going to throw all that out. I'm going to go in a completely different direction.
No.
Although that might be the right answer. What we're saying is look for those opportunities to make those 1% changes. Be patient to allow those 1% changes to manifest and continue constantly tweaking the dials.
Yeah. Personal growth isn't linear, is it? It's an undulating experience.
I don't think anything in life is linear.
Yeah. So just moving forward as you're suggesting with little steps, that's growth.
That's growth. The third one, Peter, and this is one, again, that I'll defer to you, which is reflecting, taking the time to reflect on what you've learned and how you've grown. So we're getting into the continuous learning that you just brought up. So what's your thoughts on reflection during this process?
Well, reflection gives you an opportunity to see how your actions have affected you, how your mindset led you to choices and the outcomes that were from that. So reflecting is different from ruminating. So I want to make a distinction there. I don't want people to confuse, I don't want the audience to confuse reflection with ruminating. Sometimes ruminating is very emotive, brings up emotions from the past. Reflection is intended to be a little bit more conscious, I think is the best word. I was going to use mental, cognitive, but more conscious, because you're looking at and reflecting on the timeline, past, present, and even future, and seeing how your actions produce certain results, or the actions of other people, or the inactions. And reflecting on all that, reflecting on flow, lack of flow. All of those things are important in making adjustments in the now.
Yeah, agreed. I think the last point that I'll raise, it's a little more practical, which is if you have a challenge and it's something that's going to take time to overcome, break it down into a series of smaller parts so that you can see your progress over time. You can feel the momentum start to build as you're doing everything else. We're talking about being patient and reflecting and being consistent with it. But there needs to be that intellectual element to what do I need to do in order to overcome this obstacle.
Yeah. And reflecting and keeping in mind, how are you getting in your way? It's one factor that we haven't really brought up just yet. How are you obstructing, or the term I use sometimes, Darius, is how are you self-sabotaging?
Yeah. So, Peter, we're coming up on the conclusion of this exercise. I would love for you in maybe 45 seconds to summarize for our listeners what we've been through in the last half hour.
I would summarize by saying we talked about being aware of the lenses of your mindset. Sometimes I use the word perception, but the lenses that define how you're perceiving, how you're interpreting situations, and how they influence your ability to fail and get back up and be resilient. And how little steps can go a long way, as well as reflecting on them to your personal development and growth.
Yeah, I would add a couple of thoughts. One, challenges everywhere. It's a part of the human experience. So the mindset that you approach those challenges with is going to dictate how you experience those challenges. the lenses, the preconceived notions, the beliefs, the biases that you bring in. We're encouraging you not to run from the challenges. We're encouraging you to see those challenges as opportunities for personal, professional, even transformational growth. And we are including some tangible steps. Be patient, reflect, be flexible, have a plan that you're executing against. Again, flexible, adapting, patient, in order to go through the journey. And then the last thing that we haven't raised is there's no outcome. The journey is the destination.
Yes.
So as you're leaning into whatever challenge you're choosing to lean into, embrace the entire process of quote unquote adversity. Diamond is not made without pressure and is not polished without friction.
Yeah, true. So true. It's an odyssey. Life is an odyssey.
So I'm going to say a few words, and then Peter, I'll leave you with a call to action this time. And the words to reflect on, and I think I've said this once before, life is hard, but you get to choose your hard. It's hard to get up in the morning and go to the gym. It's hard to sit on the couch, become a sedentary, put on weight, and to stand up from the couch. It is hard to prepare a healthy meal at home. It's hard if you eat fast food every day and have to deal with the resulting sequelae of metabolic disease. So we have the opportunity to choose our hard. And again, we're encouraging you to lean into those challenges to grow and develop. A call to action, my friend.
You just said it, and I'll repeat it. The call to action is to lean into the challenges of your life, and with a mindset that's positive and not limited, and choose to continue your personal development and growth. If for no other reason than remembering that if you're not growing, you're just slowly dying.
So true. Again, agedifferently.com. Leave us any comments, feedback, questions. I'm delighted to have you guys in the audience. Please like, subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. And we're looking forward to more episodes and having you guys join us. So thank you very much for your time today, everyone.
Have a great one. Take care.